Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. David Cameron, or Lord Cameron as he is now, is on a bit of a vendetta against Humza Yousaf, and he's threatening to close down all the pretendy embassies that the SNP maintain around the world. And the reason for this is that Humza Yousaf has taken it upon himself to grant himself more powers than to which he is entitled. He started holding high-level inter-country discussions with another world leader. It is not his place. Humza Yousaf is not a representative of the United Kingdom. He is not a representative of the UK government. He has no plenipotentiary powers. He has no diplomatic standing. He is little more than a regional leader. And he certainly should not be engaging in international diplomacy on behalf of the United Kingdom and discussing world affairs with another world leader. That remains solely the remit of the UK government. For him to do so could be seen by some as possibly treason. This, of course, has raised the ire, shall we say, of David Cameron, who should be in control of these things from his position. It seems Humza Yousaf is starting to treat Scotland as his own personal satrapy, and that, of course, should be resisted. We'll take a look at the story and see what is going on. Here goes. Now, of course, this was the sort of story I did that flash video last night on, because it is incredibly important and has very big ramifications. Humza Yousaf does not have any standing and should not at all be discussing world-level events outside of his remit, certainly not without representatives of the FCO or some form of diplomatic oversight. No doubt he felt he did it in order to feel important. Look at me, I'm standing on the world stage. This is a lovely opportunity. Get that photograph taken. A regional leader shaking hands with what would, although yes, a country's leader, what some would say was a man with terrible human rights. And so that is not a good look. So what do we expect, though? It's all good, shall we say, worshippers together, But he has this desperate need to appear important, because he's not important, he's impotent. And yet there he is discussing high-level international relations outside of his, well beyond his ability, but outside of his remit. He should not be doing it. And this, of course, has really angered everyone at the Foreign Office. One ill-conceived word can do untold damage after years of diplomacy. And, of course, Humza Yousaf is a moron, so chances are it will be more than a single word. Anyway, David Cameron threatens to close the SNP's pretendy embassies after Humza Yousaf's Erdogan meeting. The furious Foreign Secretary says it is vital that we speak with one voice on foreign affairs after the First Minister met the Turkish President without a minder and discussed calls for a ceasefire in Gaza. This is discussions that should be held literally only by the Foreign Minister, not by the likes of Humza Yousaf, who is little more than a mayor in terms of level of power and of budget. And there he is, shaking hands with one of the dodgiest people in politics. You have to really worry about the state of Erdogan's mind when you see him shaking his hand. Boom, boom. Foreign Secretary David Cameron has threatened to close the SNP's network of pretendy embassies after Humza Yousaf met with Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The First Minister met the Turkish President at the COP28 in Dubai without a UK official present and discussed calls for a ceasefire in the war between Israel and Hamas. And you have to ask at this point, who the hell does Humza Yousaf think he is? He does not represent the United Kingdom, and it is not his place. He seems to think that he is far, far more important than he actually is. And of course, he is not important at all. Not at that level. Not at international relations level. In a letter to External Affairs Secretary Angus Robertson, seen by the Scottish Daily Express, Lord Cameron said it was a clear breach of the protocol agreed by the Scottish and UK governments. He wrote, "It is critical that the UK presents a consistent message to our international partners and that the devolution settlements are respected. We must ensure that the UK foreign policy, a reserved matter, is coherent and that we speak with one voice to the international community. I remain open to discussing a constructive way forward. However, any further breaches of protocol will result in no further FCDO facilitation of meetings or logical support. We will also need to consider the presence of Scottish Government offices in UK government posts. In other words, heel boy, heel, sit, he's telling him, know your place. Know that you have no power to do this, and regardless of how important you think you are, you aren't. That's what's being said there. Not in those words, of course. You have to couch it in the words of politics, but we can all read between the lines. It comes amid ongoing tensions between Westminster and Holyrood over SNP ministers meeting foreign officials. It needs to be outlawed. It needs to be done that no citizen, no official, no politician, other than government, either government or government approved or government agency, should have any discussions with foreign powers. In America, they have the Logan Act. And breaching that is treason. And it carries 10 years in prison. Minimum of 10 years in prison. And that's why it doesn't happen in America, because they don't want to do 10 years in an American prison. Anyway, in his letter, Lord Cameron said the Scottish Government had assured the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, the FCDO, that it would give sufficient advance notice of the meeting with Mr. Erdogan. And he said he was to allow one of his officials to attend the meeting, and that was not done. Lord Cameron's predecessor, James Cleverly, also warned Mr. Yousaf after he met the Icelandic Prime Minister back in August, again without UK diplomats. The rules were introduced after Mr. Robertson held a number of meetings where the UK constitution was discussed. But Whitehall sources said the new Foreign Secretary was keen to take a tougher stance with the SNP over their meddling in reserved matters. There's also the potential chaos, of course, that could be caused by a moron like Humza Yousaf wading in on high politics at a diplomatic level and say, oh yes, blah, 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 whatever his position is, and possibly undoing years of delicate footwork and planning and, discussions by diplomats on both sides. Because foreign policy is complex. And yet you get a moron wading in, opening his mouth and putting his size 9 firmly in it, and could cause a bloody war. Anyway, the SNP government has a network of 8 overseas buildings costing the taxpayer more than $9 million a year to run. Most of them are based in British embassies and are understood to be largely rent-free. That's fine. What you need to do now is close them. They've gone. You just go. And just take them away. It's perfectly fine to do so. He's got no right to have them. There's no obligation to have them. It was a courtesy. Well, let's uncourtesy them and get rid of them. And make them illegal, basically. A UK government spokeswoman said foreign affairs is a reserved matter under the Scotland Act, and in such turbulent times, the need for the UK to speak on the world stage with one consistent voice is more important than ever. It always was important. They continued, our embassies and high commissions overseas have a strong track record of working collaboratively with the Scottish Government to promote the interest of the whole UK. We hope that we can resolve this without the need of further action, including the possibility that we no longer host Scottish Government offices in UK government posts. After his meeting with Mr. Erdogan and the Lebanese Prime Minister, Mr. Yousaf tweeted that he had discussed the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. Was that when the Gazans got out and slaughtered all the children? Was that the humanitarian thing he's on about? Don't think so, was it? The Turkish president has accused Israel of acting like a war criminal, which is, I think, very apt when you see what the Turkish president has done to the Kurds. So, a bit of pot and kettle there, mate. And Tel Aviv responded by withdrawing diplomats from Turkey. The meeting between Mr. Yousaf and Mr. Erdogan had already proven controversial within the SNP. Glasgow councillor Rosa Saleh said she was disgusted by the meeting as Turkey had stepped up attacks on Kurdish groups in Syria. Bada bing. The Kurdish-born politician was elected in 2022 and became the first councillor to have moved to Scotland as a refugee. Spokesman for the First Minister said the UK official was aware of and invited to the meeting, and the same arrangements were made in place for Mr Yousaf's with other world leaders. He should have no input with world leaders. Who the hell does he think he is? He's a man desperate for selfies with people of importance because he has none himself. The nature of events such as the COP is that timings can change at the last minute. Well, if there's... So what? So the timings change. That means you don't meet these people. If there's no minder from the FCO, the meeting's off. And it's got to be made law that anyone meeting with a foreign official outside of the agency of the FCO is treason. End of story. And 10 years. And upon landing back in Scotland, the security forces arrest him, take him to a judge, throw him out in front of the judge, and there it is. And that's it. Bang. And immediately, 24 hours. Did you do it? Yes. Bang. And you're in. 10 years in prison. You only have to do that once, and I tell you what, it will never happen again. Scottish Government source said Lord Cameron's letter was a gross overreaction. Well, it's not, because you've done it before. If you were capable of understanding, it wouldn't have happened, but you're not. And you need this desperate need to feel important. And that's it. He shouldn't have done it. He knows he shouldn't have done it, but he has a desperate need to feel important. So, hey, let me shake the hand. He's basically wanking off with world leaders because it's giving him the horn, isn't it? Look at me. I'm standing here with all these important people. Little old me, a man with no power whatsoever, and who certainly shouldn't be discussing international relations, things about which I know nothing, but I'm going to, so I can go home and have a little circle jerk to say with all my friends how important I am. What a prick. Coming up. Humza Yousaf, I suppose, is a bit like a security guard in a building, isn't he? He's a very lowly position. He has no real importance. And yet he can, in his own mind, feel important by doing this and doing that and stopping people coming in or letting allow other people in and things like that. A very overinflated self-image, I think. And, you know, he's got a massive ego and yet such little power. And so it's obvious that he tries to build up his powers, his fiefdom, if you will. Look at me, I'm very, very important now, as he sends these pictures back for domestic consumption. But I don't think, you know, mixing with a man with dodgy human rights is particularly good. And indeed, the Foreign Office don't think so either. There's a lot of tension between the UK and Turkey at the moment. Turkey coming out of NATO, Turkey desperate to get into the EU, Turkey taking the wrong side in a lot of things, and very much aligned towards Russia now, which seems a very weird way of doing things. But that's the choice they made. Turkey used to be a free and open state, and it's becoming increasingly an Islamic republic under Erdogan, who is quite a hardliner. And as I say, has blood on his hands. Just ask the families of the dead Kurds. And so there he is. Look at him. Look at me. I'm important. No, Humza Yousaf. You're just a dick. I'm just annoyed with him. Anyway, we shall finish there. First one of the day. Got a lot to do today, but that's the first one of the day. So we'll move on. Thank you very much for watching. Do hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will speak to you later. Bye.